Let's be honest, personal finance can be full of a lot of unclear terms and really big words that just make it really hard to engage with. So today, I want to take some time to just go through a few words and phrases that can shed light on some of the larger concepts that we'll be talking about on this channel. So let's get into it. Alright, first and foremost, welcome back to the Inspired Investors channel where we share personal finance and real estate information to inspire freedom. I'm Caleb, and today we're going to be talking about 7 terms that you need to know on your journey to financial freedom. These terms are going to be foundational to understanding where you are now and determining what types of tools you need to incorporate to get to where you want to go in your financial life. So let's get into it. So the first word I want to start with defining is asset. I like to define an asset as anything that brings you closer to your financial goals or really any other goals you may have. In most cases, an asset is going to be something that you put money into and then over time or at a future date, it gives you a great return. And so usually I'd like to go with the example of real estate. I think it's an amazing asset class, and before I would have said it was the best, but I've been working with a company called Better Wealth, and they have a belief that you are your greatest asset. I think that's something that is very profound and very powerful and something that I'm trying to step more into myself. And so I want to bring that up here and encourage you to do the same. So we have real estate, but other assets can include cash, CDs, stocks, bonds, really anything that can produce value for you over time. And beyond money, like I said, it can be yourself, it can be relationships, anything that is, again, bringing you value. So the second word I want to define is liability. And kind of going in the same vein as how I define an asset, I want to define a liability as anything that takes you further away from your goal. So when it comes to money and finances, liabilities can be pretty much anything that you'll waste your money on. Bigger than that though, I like to apply this thinking of assets and liabilities to things outside of money. And so when I think about liabilities, I often think about how I spend my time and whether I'm wasting my time or investing my time. I think this way of thinking about assets and liabilities in relationship to a goal or this dream vision of your life that you have can really help to provide structure around how you evaluate things like your relationships, how you spend your time, what your health habits are, or anything else that might be important to you. Remember, wealth building is about so much more than just finances. It's about building a life that you yourself are proud to live and you can enjoy. And ideally, you can bring the people close to you along as well. So the third concept I want to talk about today is equity. And I like to think about equity in terms of how much ownership I have over something. It can be calculated by taking the total value of your asset minus the amount of debt that you have associated with it. Whatever that answer is how much equity you have. So we talk a lot about real estate on this channel. So let's say you have a house that is valued at $100,000 and you've been paying the mortgage on it for some time. So what you have left on your mortgage balance is $70,000. This would mean that you have $30,000 worth of equity in your home. So equity is key to understanding the fourth thing I want to talk about today, and that thing is leverage. So leverage is when you use a borrowed asset to buy more assets. So in most cases, you'll need some equity in order to leverage something. However, you usually don't need to own something 100% in order to use it to buy another asset. Let's go back to our example with a $100,000 home with $30,000 worth of equity. And let's say some more time has passed and we've increased our equity to $50,000. So what a lot of real estate investors do is leverage this property, meaning that they might take out, $20,000 and use that as a down payment on another property. And this is a way to grow your real estate portfolio without having to pay, millions of dollars out of pocket. So if you think about it, leveraging an asset is pretty similar to using a secured loan. And so you can get really flexible about the different lines of credit or loan products that you use to do this. But the biggest thing to be aware of here is to not over leverage yourself. Simply put, over leveraging is when you put yourself in a situation where you take on a lot of debt and you may or may not be able to actually handle it. So the fifth thing we're going to talk about today is opportunity cost. And I think this is something that's really important because it gets at the core of what the true price of something is when you're spending your money or, spending your time, your resources, energy, whatever. So the best way I can describe opportunity cost is the cost of choosing one option over another. So let's use an example to talk about this a little more in depth. Let's say you want to take a trip to New York this summer and you have two options. You can drive there or you can fly there. So driving may cost less money, but let's say driving takes you 10 more hours than taking a flight. If you choose to drive solely based on price, then you're neglecting the amount of time that it takes you as well. And time is very valuable. It's probably one of the most valuable assets we have. And so this trade-off, this 10 hours of additional time, will be your opportunity cost that you are paying in order to drive versus to fly. The time that you spend driving is also going to affect your experience in New York as well. If you spend 10 hours driving to New York and let's say you only have a weekend to be there, you also have to spend 10 hours driving home on Sunday so you can get to work on Monday, which means you lose 20 hours of a 48-hour weekend. And that cuts into a lot of fun. You also might consider that you're putting a lot of miles on your car, and when you do get to New York, you'll have to pay for parking in a city like New York. So that can be crazy. So by the time you get to the end of all this, you might say, yes, driving is cheaper, but I'm gonna go ahead and fly based on the opportunity cost. So the sixth word is my favorite, and it's cash flow. Investopedia defines cash flow as the net amount of cash and cash equivalents being transferred into and out of a business. So let's give a real quick example. Let's say you have a house that has a mortgage and expenses all rolled up together, $800 per month. Let's say you can rent this house for $1,000 per month. That means that your $1,000 minus your $800 is $200 per month in positive cash flow. And cash flow can help you understand why some real estate investors are comfortable having $1 million in debt. So they may not have $1 million in cash sitting in a bank account in case things go wrong. But because they have a system around how their cash flow is managed, they're comfortable being this leverage. They're comfortable having $1 million in debt because they know they can meet those monthly payments consistently and comfortably. So cash flow is not only an indicator of whether or not you'll make money on a deal, which is very important. It can also be leveraged, which can open some pretty crazy doors for you as well. So for me, cash flow is probably the most important aspect of a financial situation. If I'm looking at should I invest in something or even just how am I doing financially, if I look at the cash flow and it's positive, that's good. If I look at it and it's negative, I know something's not going too hot and I need to make some changes. Also, I want to do a side note and just say everybody shouldn't go get $1 million in mortgages. That's not for everybody. It's for experienced investors. And I just want to highlight that it only works because they're buying assets. You can't go and buy a bunch of clothes and shoes and probably even cars. You can't go buy those types of things and think that it's a good financial move, like pretty much ever, unless you got a really good plan. On the other hand, buying assets with debt can be a game changer in your financial journey. So take a look at your monthly cash flow just to see how you're doing financially. The key here to increasing your cash flow is going to be decreasing your expenses and increasing your income. So the seventh financial concept I want to talk about today is interest. And Investopedia defines interest as the monetary charge for the privilege of borrowing money. Personally, I try to pay as little interest as possible just because I feel like it's giving money away. So there are two easy buckets to put interest into. And the first one is called simple interest. Simple interest is used for the majority of revolving credit. So think about things like credit cards and lines of credit. So I'll get more into this in another video, but the key to not paying simple interest is to keep your balance paid completely off as fast as possible, or to not carry a balance. Ideally, both. So the second type of interest we're going to talk about is amortized interest. And this is usually for bigger installment loans like mortgages and car notes. So with amortized interest, you have a minimum payment every month, but the loan is structured in a way that you pay the majority of your interest up front. And then as you pay the loan down over time, you start to pay more into your principal. So again, I'll go into more detail about that in a future video. But the thing to remember to avoid paying interest with an amortized loan is this. If it's in your budget and it aligns with your goals, throw some extra money at your principal payment as often as you can. What this is going to do is lower the amount that you owe overall, and interest is a percentage of what you currently owe. So if that number of what you currently owe is smaller, then the amount that you pay in interest is going to be smaller as well. If there's anything in this video that you would like more information on or still have questions about, feel free to leave a comment below and we'll get to it as soon as possible. If this video was helpful for you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone else who will find it useful. Also, check us out on Instagram at Inspired Investors. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.